Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk about dreams and how to decode dream symbolism. Decoding dream symbolism will help you to make sense of your dreams. So we're going to begin with what is symbolism and how do you figure it out, how you decode it. And then we're going to look at specific examples from dreams that I have decoded that will really help to illustrate this subject and make it easier to understand. So I am J.M. DeBoard. I'm known as RadOwl, the Reddit.com dream expert. I wrote the book Dreams 123, Remember, Interpret, and Live Your Dreams. It's published by Hampton Roads and still available at book retailers. I have been studying dreams for the last 2 decades and have much personal experience with my own dreams and with helping other people with their dreams. I have been a guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie and many other media programs. Symbolism is your Rosetta Stone for translating dream language. Specifically, it's your knowledge and understanding of symbolism. Because symbolism is a language, and when you translate it, you can see the meaning and message of symbolism. So let's begin with, well, what is symbolism? It's the practice of giving special meaning to objects, things, relationships, or events. Another way of thinking about it is it's a shorthand way of expressing an idea. I really like that example, that definition, because it summarizes really what symbolism is. So begin with the symbolism of a limousine. What's the first thoughts that come to mind if you think of a limo? It's a symbol of wealth and power, but you need to look at it within the context of a dream. You know, like a 50-foot long limo could be a symbol of excess. It could be a symbol of privilege. Consider the dove. It's often seen as a symbol of peace. That's how it's used. But if in your dream a dove is in the road pecking at an old French fry, that has a different ring to it, doesn't it? It can mean that it's related to the struggle for survival. So I want to make the point right away that you need to put the dream symbols into context of the dream, the story, to really understand what it means. You know, people can be really shocked by their dream imagery sometimes when it's terrifying, when it's immoral, when you do something that's completely outside of reality for you. And it's very important to understand that you are not to take the dream imagery literally. I have a quote here from the famous dream psychologist Carl Jung, who has been a big influence on my understanding of dreams. And this quote really helps to drive the point home. He says, "It is a well-known fact that one of the principles of analytical psychology is that the dream images are to be understood symbolically. That is to say, that they are not to be taken literally, just as they are presented in sleep, but that behind them a hidden meaning has to be surmised. Don't take your dream imagery literally. It is symbolism." Let's look at some common dream symbols. Look at the picture in the top left, the gun pointing at you. How does that make you feel? What are the first thoughts that come to mind? Well, you know, it's threatening. It can make you fearful. And these are 2 ways that guns can be used in dreams as symbolism. It can be related to power and authority because the person holding the gun gets their way, right? And there are other possibilities. A gun is used for self-defense. And self-defense can translate to the idea of doing anything to protect yourself, to protect your personal boundaries, to protect your emotional inner self. Now look to the right. The picture, "I was abducted by aliens." There's great satire here because, you know, being abducted by aliens is a pretty common theme. I mean, it pops up pretty frequently in dreams. And it doesn't mean that you're being abducted by aliens. Some people take it literally and they wonder if they're being, transported up into the UFO and experimented on and stuff like that in their sleep. When really it's symbolism. So you begin with, well, what is an alien, other than a little gray guy? Well, an alien can be a foreigner. It can be something that is alien to you. It can be something that is outside the scope of your experience. It can be something that is foreign to you. So when you're looking at dream symbolism, you always start with what the dream shows you, and then you start branching out and making connections. Let's go down to the picture of the hand. Well, what is a hand used for? Well, it's to do things, to take action. Therefore, in a dream, the symbolism of a hand can relate to taking some kind of action. But there are other possibilities. Hands hold. They help you to make connections with other people. Hands are sensitive. You have a lot of sensitive nerves down there. So when you're considering the symbolism of a hand, you might also look at things such as, are you sensitive to your needs and to others? Are you sensitive to feelings and emotions? Now look in the bottom left. This is the typical image of a person being pursued or chased, and it's a pretty common dream theme. So start with the idea of being pursued. What is pursuing you? Now, it's in the dream, it's a physical representation of a personal situation. So, for example, you could be pursued by the fear of financial ruin, by the fear of failure. It could just be something that you're ignoring or repressing. There could be some part of you that wants to be, it's deep down inside you and it wants to come out. It wants to be a conscious part of you. It could be a desire that you have to do something, such as in my own life, I used to be pursued in my dreams by a desire to publish a book. I dreamed up this idea when I was a teenager. I thought, hey, I want to be an author. This sounds like a great thing to do with my life. I'd love to do this. I love to read. I love to write. But as I got into everything that it takes to become a published author, I got overwhelmed and I kind of pushed the idea aside for a while. And luckily it pursued me because I'm now a published author and I stuck with it. But there were times when I didn't pursue it and it pursued me. Here is something important to understand is that when you're dreaming, your mind is getting input and your dreams are translating that input into symbolism. The dreaming mind is a translator of all input into symbolism. So that input can include such things as thoughts and feelings, emotions, memories, perceptions, physical stimuli. If you hear something while you're asleep and dreaming, it will be translated into imagery in the dream, such as you hear a loud noise and it gets translated into the sound of a gun firing. Keep that in mind because if you can trace the source of the input into the dream, you can also trace the source of the symbolism. Everything in dreams is symbolism. This is a rule of thumb. It does have some exceptions. There are sometimes literal representations in dreams, but this is few and far between. Usually, everything in dreams is symbolism. Now, meaningful dreams are stories, and symbolism is the language that's used to tell the stories. I say meaningful because some dreams are just imagery. It's kind of the warm-up. If you think of a musician warming up backstage before a performance and they're just running through scales, well, it's not really music yet. So sometimes your dreams, or you are actually in the act of dreaming, your mind is producing dream imagery, but it's not weaving together into a story. And it's not meaningful. Your meaningful dreams, they engage you. They stand out. They spark your emotions. So look for the ones that are the most meaningful, because you can dream quite a lot in the average night. If you sleep for 8 hours, you can spend up to 2 hours of that time, a quarter of the time in REM sleep when dreams are most vivid. But you can start dreaming basically as soon as you close your eyes to go to sleep, but at least dreaming in the sense of your mind is producing imagery. Look for the stories. What do stories have? Well, they have nouns, or language, should I say, has nouns. And that in dreams, that means your settings and characters. Language has verbs. So in dreams, that means actions and how you react. You have adjectives, which in dreams are they're the symbols, basically. They're something that modifies something else and helps give it definition. Symbolism uses storytelling devices such as metaphor and pun, figure of speech, wordplay, exaggeration, comparison, contrast, and satire. At the heart of most symbolism, there is some kind of comparison being made. And comparison is the heart of storytelling devices such as metaphor and figure of speech. If you want to understand symbolism better, understand that it's used to tell stories in dreams and that your dreams use storytelling devices. The better you understand storytelling devices, the better you will understand your dream stories. Symbolism can be acted out as well as pictured. This is an important thing to understand because it's easy to get the impression that the symbol is this static thing. It's a snapshot. When really you take, for dreams and for our purpose, you take a symbol, you put it together with the action surrounding that symbol, and that equals symbolism. And symbolism is what's really used to tell the story. Think of the difference between a picture and a video. Oftentimes in a picture, you can tell what's really going on, but not always. If you see a video of the same scene, then it leaves no doubt. With symbolism, is like the video. You want to have no doubt about it. So look at the symbol together with its action to figure out what the symbolism is. Symbolism is a physical representation of a personal situation. This probably arises more than anything else in dreams. When I'm looking at symbolism, I ask myself, how is this representing a personal situation? Something about the outer or inner dynamics of the dreamer's life. And we're going to see a lot of examples of this later. Discrepancies with reality scream symbolism. It is deliberately done. The dream is deliberately, for example, showing that your best friend has dyed his or her hair blue. It's something you know that your friend would never do. And so it's a discrepancy with reality that screams symbolism. Or let's say that you dream that you have a spouse. You're married, but in real life, you're single and you've never been married. Well, that discrepancy with reality says something. It could mean, for example, that you are married to your job or you're married to a cause. Now, dreams can get pretty absurd. And a general rule of thumb that was given to us by Sigmund Freud is that the more absurd a scene in a dream or the dream itself, the more revealing it can be. The absurdity is deliberate. It's saying something about you. So really focus in. When dreams have big discrepancies with reality and when they're really absurd, you can focus there for the symbolism. Now, the dream in its entirety is a symbol. It's a picture that says 1,000 words. You put all of the details together of a dream to form a picture. And that picture is one symbol in itself. If you think about dreams that way, then you'll always be asking yourself, what is the big picture of what this dream is saying? Symbolism is the language of the unconscious mind. And when I say unconscious, I don't mean knocked out like a boxer flat on your back. That's an easy mistake to make. Unconscious means outside the scope of your conscious awareness. And your conscious mind, what you know about yourself, is really just the tip of the iceberg. Your mind is much vaster and more expansive than just what you know about yourself. So understanding the unconscious mind is important for understanding dreams because your unconscious mind is what produces dreams, and the unconscious mind uses symbolism to communicate. Symbolism will cross-reference with other dream content. As I said earlier, it all forms together into a picture, and I'm going to show you how it all ties together here later. Just keep this in mind. The dream symbolism cross-references. It's also defined by the context of the dream story and by modifiers, such as where the symbol is located. What's the setting of the dream where you see the symbol? Who is there? Who are the dream characters? Why is it there? What is it doing? How do you react? And how do you feel in response? What are your personal associations? Let's begin with the picture that I have down here of the red sports car. You can look up the word car in a dream dictionary and you can get some ideas of what the symbolism means, but it may not really apply to the hot red sports car that's in your dream. The fact that it's a sports car and the fact that it's red, it says something. You know, a sports car is faster than the average car. Riding in a sports car can be an exhilarating experience. It could mean, for example, that you seek out the adrenaline rush and it's related to adventure. Red can mean aggressive and, powerful. So I want to use an example here to really expand on this idea. I know somebody who had a dream about a hot red sports car that was waiting for her after she got done trekking up a mountain. When she jumped into the car, she was expecting to be able to drive away, but there were no keys. So you can't start the car if you don't have any keys. Well, we talked about the dream and figured out that climbing the mountain is a metaphor. It's very obvious when you think about it. What does climbing a mountain mean? It means accomplishing a big task. Getting to the top means you're done with it. Well, for her, that meant being done with college. She did very well in college, and at the end of her pursuit, and when she got her degree, she was expecting a hot, revved up career to be waiting for her like the sports car at the top of the mountain. Well, it didn't materialize. She made an association with the car because it reminded her of a car that her father used to have, a car that she really loved. And she thought she was following in her father's footsteps. After she went through school, she was expecting to have the same sort of successful career that he had. And, well, it didn't start off that way. So the red sports car at the top of a mountain with no keys in it was a perfect summary of her situation. In one picture, you can see everything about the situation summarized. So when you have a symbol, such as a hot red sports car in your dream, you begin brainstorming ideas about what it can mean. You kind of start off with the general idea of the symbol, and then you look for specifics. So you begin generally with, what is a symbol's use and function in everyday life? Well, for a car, it's something that takes you places. It's movement, and movement can translate into movement in your life and the places where you want to go and where you want to be. And it can also just describe the day-to-day movement of your life, how it flows and how one day connects to the next. You also want to look for other definitions of the symbol. The symbol itself is, you summarize it in a word. Let's say cheating. You dream that you cheat on your spouse or significant other, or you get cheated on. Well, there are other definitions of the word cheating, and it could mean playing unfairly. It can mean going behind someone's back. It can mean cheating on a test. These are ways your dreams can take the one idea of cheating and connect it with these other ideas of cheating. So it presents it to you as cheating on a spouse, and really what it means is that, say for instance, you've been doing something that you don't want your spouse to know about. So the two ideas connect. You're doing something that you don't want your spouse to know about, and you dream about it as cheating. You want to ask yourself, is a comparison or contrast made, or is there a metaphor being made here? We know that these are popular ways that dreams can create symbolism. So look through a dream for these comparisons and metaphors. You want to tie together the symbol with other details in the dream. It can start brainstorming ideas. Okay, it's a car. What kind of car? It's a sports car. Well, that defines car. Well, it's a red sports car. So now we have more details that tie together and can be used to create symbolism. How does the symbol fit into the dream story? This is very important. The story is giving you a context for the symbol. So look at the symbol within the context. Don't look at it just by itself. Always look at it within the story. How do you feel about the dream symbol? This can tell you a lot. I use my feelings as my number one guide for what my symbolism means, because my feelings really tell me what the symbolism means. There's always a reaction that you get inside of you. You can feel it in your body when you think about a dream symbol. And with a little bit of practice, you can do it too. You also look at your personal associations with the symbol, and we're going to get into that subject right now. Personal associations are the primary basis of symbolism. Your experience in life and the things that you are exposed to, the types of symbolism and ways that symbolism are used, can all be used by your dreams. Your unconscious mind is always in the background. It's always aware of what's going on, and it's seeing the way that symbolism is used, and it's looking at your experiences and saying, hey, well, this is interesting. I can use this as symbolism, and it stores the information away for later. To give a quick example, I know somebody who dreamed about a raccoon attacking him. There were other things that happened in the dream, but the essence of it was he was attacked by a raccoon. So we started off the decoding process by considering the general symbolism. You know, a raccoon, what does it bring to mind? What do you associate with it? Well, it's a predator, it's a scavenger. It's not really so much a predator, but they can be dangerous. They're scavengers. You know, they can be perceived as being sneaky because they have what looks like a mask around their eyes. It looks like a bandit mask. Well, none of these associations really, rang a bell with him. So I asked him to consider his personal experiences with raccoons, and something came to mind right away. He said, when I was a kid, I used to go camping with my parents, and this one time there were some raccoons around the campground, and I was feeding them, and my parents got upset about it. They admonished me, and, they told me not to feed the raccoons. And we started with that idea, and I summarized it as, well, then you were punished for being helpful. How does that apply to your life? And he was able to make a connection. He said, yeah, I have been in a situation recently where I felt punished for being helpful. And so the raccoon in the dream is based off of that life experience, and the dream took it and created symbolism out of it. You begin with associations. You keep it simple. What are the first thoughts that come to mind when thinking about a dream symbol? Right off the top of your head. Keep it simple. And then you take those associations and you apply them to the dream. You say, do they fit? And if they do, it's going to ring a bell in you. You're going to feel it. You're going to go, this fits. A lot of your associations are not going to fit, but you should brainstorm them anyway. Don't judge it as you're brainstorming it. If it comes to mind spontaneously, just roll with it. And then later in the process of decoding the symbolism, you're going to take it and you're going to try to fit it to the dream and see, is there a connection here? Your associations help you get to your subconscious knowledge of what a dream means. It's in there somewhere. You know what the dream means. It's just you need to get to it. You need to make the connection between what you consciously know and what you subconsciously or unconsciously know. So let's go into a couple of examples here. Snake associations. This is how it works. I say snake, you say what? What are the first words, thoughts, phrases that come to mind when you think of a snake? It could be related to fear or danger or something that's bad for you, poisonous, venomous. But there are other associations that are associated with wisdom, with healing, with medicine. Snakes can shed their skin. They can be associated with leaving behind the old person, kind of shedding your skin, metaphorically. So let's also consider dogs. If I say dog, you say what? What are the first words that come to mind when you think of a dog? Now, we will go through more of this later, and I'm going to show you how associations are used to help to decode dreams. And we will cover this more later. First, I want to get into an important point. Symbolism is ingrained. You are born with it, and you also acquire it over your lifetime through your experiences and exposure, as we talked about earlier. Now, we haven't talked about the collective unconscious yet, and this is this is a big concept here. I'm just going to touch on it briefly. The point is that you were born with knowledge of some symbolism, because it is symbolism that has been ingrained from the collective experience of the human species, going all the way back to our origins. And it's down inside of what you might think of as a collective mind or a collective database that we're all drawing upon individually. This is the collective unconscious. Now, you don't have to be consciously aware that you know what this symbolism means, and your dreams can use it whether or not you know that you know it. So you're not always consciously aware of the fact that you know what the symbolism means, but you can make the presumption that you do. You just need to bridge the gap between the one side of your mind and the other. And here is the best tip that I can give you today. You already know the meaning of your dream symbolism. It is your dream. You made up the story. Yes, it was made up in the unconscious mind, and the unconscious mind is outside the scope of your awareness. But the dream was not beamed into your head from outer space. It's not coming in via radio waves or something. You actually made up the story. So you can start with the fact that you know what it means. You know that it is one side of your mind sending a message to another side of your mind. And if you already know what it means, then you're just going through a process of relearning what you already know. So some symbolism is specific to certain cultures, your culture or cultures you've been exposed to. And some of it is archetypal, which means universal. It means that if I dream about a hero rescuing a maiden and someone halfway across the world has the same dream, it's going to mean roughly the same thing, most likely. It's archetypal. But there's also very specific cultural references with some dream symbols, actually with most. And I want to give a quick example. I was giving a presentation and had talked about snakes and symbolism of snakes, and we talked about the fear and danger and venom and poison and all this stuff. And there was a hand that came up in the back, and there was a lady sitting there, and she said, in my culture, snakes are almost universally seen as positive. We look at them as symbols of fertility and of the presence of God and spirit. They are used in rituals to bless young couples to have children and to bless the land to put forth a good crop and stuff like this. And I said, thank you for bringing that up, because in Western culture, snakes, they have a lot of negative associations, especially when you consider religious connotations. The snake is the devil, and it's, the thing that tempts you. It's in the Garden of Eden and all this. And, also if snakes can be, an encounter with a snake can be pretty terrifying. It is a symbol of fear for many people, but really it depends on the culture that you're from and your exposure to the ways that symbols are defined by other cultures and within your own, of course. So we've already made the point that symbolism is based mostly on your personal associations, but I'm giving you some other things to consider. There's the archetypal and the cultural side of it too. We use symbolism in everyday life, and it's all around us. Really open your eyes to symbolism, man. You see it everywhere. I mean, it's used all the time, especially in conversations, such as with figures of speech and word plays and stuff. You see it in media, movies, TV. You see it in advertising, especially in advertising. They bring up symbols all the time, because it pushes buttons deep within you. Think of like the symbol of a mother holding a child. You respond to that. You just see the image and you respond to it. You were once that child who was held by your mother. And all of these associations come into play when just with that one quick snapshot, it brings all kinds of associations into play. So keep this in mind. It really resonates within you. And you can tell because the symbolism, you can feel it in your body. Okay, so in my dreams 1, 2, 3 system for decoding dreams and analyzing them, I have you break down a story into its symbolism and look at it as a story. And well, what is common to stories? Well, they have story elements such as settings, characters, and symbols. Meaningful dreams are stories told through symbolism, so you can analyze them the same as a movie or a novel or TV show. Symbolism is used all the time in movies. For example, The Sixth Sense. The movie uses the color red. Wait, spoiler alert. It uses the color red in scenes where there are references to death. And this is a trick that directors, movie makers, they love to bring this in because they don't have to say something. They can show it to you and you can respond to it subconsciously. And it's a great storytelling technique. Many stories have symbols in them, although not all of them. And I'm talking about stories such as in a movie or novel or TV show. But really, if an author uses a figure of speech, they're using symbolism. So it's pretty much a universal rule. And a rule of thumb is that settings set the scene. They give the big picture of what a dream is about. And the characters, they enact the symbolism. Okay, so we're going to move on now to the narrative components of a dream. Actions in a dream tell the story. They move the plot. They enact the symbolism. And this is very important to understand is that your actions in a dream enact symbolism. When you, for example, stab a friend in the back in a dream, let's just say that that happens in a dream, and you step back and you go, oh my God, why did I do that to my friend? Well, you're enacting symbolism. And it could mean that you have done something to betray that person, or it could be perceived as a betrayal. It could mean that you said something behind their back, or you did something that is something that the person wouldn't approve of. Remember that dreams exaggerate, so it may not be on the level of betrayal, of stabbing someone in the back, but it's probably something that is in some way related to that idea. You are enacting the symbolism. You also react based on subconscious knowledge of the symbolism. There is the overt story of a dream, but there's also, you're not reacting to the overt story. You're reacting to that subconscious knowledge of what the symbolism means. And this can help to explain strange reactions. So I have an example. A young woman dreamed that she was in bed having really hot sex. The guy stops to put on a condom, and a drink that he had set on the bed spills, and it gets on her mattress. She reacts furiously. She kicks him out. So the reaction really tells you something, and we began there when we were decoding the dream by presuming that there was something about that reaction that was going to tell us about the story and how it connected with her life. And as a, 20-something female who was sexually active, her greatest fear was accidentally getting pregnant. And with that in mind, you can really see how the details of the dream tie together and understand her reaction. So what can spill when you're having sex? What can spill like the drink on the mattress? Well, semen. Also consider that the man in the dream is putting on a condom. So she is afraid of accidentally getting pregnant, and it explains her reaction to the drink being spilled on the bed. Resolution is the point of the dream. It can be found in the dream story itself. Sometimes it's right there in the content. The dream is making a suggestion, it's answering a question, it's helping you to resolve something. Or the resolution comes through the implication. The dream brings up something, and you're going to think it through, and you're going to come up with your own resolution. Let's say in the last example with the young woman, if she fears being accidentally getting pregnant, then there are steps that she can take. She uses protection, but maybe she needs to take another step to make sure that if a condom breaks or something like that, that she's not going to accidentally get pregnant. There is an implication from what is raised in the dream, and by thinking about it, she's able to resolve the dream because she takes some kind of an action in response. Now, the narrative components tie together with the story elements, and it all fits together to form a picture. You don't very often interpret a dream or decode it based off of just a snippet. I mean, sometimes that's all you remember, and that's okay. You can interpret a dream or understand it based just off of a snippet, but you want to put everything together and see how it fits together into a picture. So we're going to do a little exercise now. I think I've given you some really good ideas about how symbolism works, what it is, how you can figure it out for yourself, how it ties together in a dream, what it says about you. With that in mind, we're going to do an exercise. Look at the scenario on the left. These are scenarios I've run across in dreams, and match it with the possible meaning on the right. And the ones on the right are mixed up. So think of it in your mind as drawing a line between the scenario and the possible meaning, and begin with drive in reverse. What could that mean? If you look at through the choices here for meanings, driving in reverse is generally thought of as going the wrong direction. And if you want to go forward and you're driving in reverse, you're going in the wrong direction. That could be seen as a personal setback. If somebody says you're driving in reverse, it doesn't have anything to do with your driving. It means that their opinion is that your life is going the wrong direction. So look at brakes don't work. What could that mean? It can mean that you can't slow down. If the brakes don't work on a car, then you can't slow the car down. It's a physical representation of a personal situation. It means your life is going by too fast. You can't slow it down. If you drive from the back seat, what could it mean? Well, think of the term backseat driver. What does that mean? It means you control from a distance. And so if you drive from the back seat, you're controlling from a distance. If you park your car under a structure that collapses, what could that mean? Look at the bottom there among the possible meanings. A structure that collapses is falling. That can mean that your plans fall through. It could be plans for this weekend, but think also about plans like where you want to go and what you want to do with your life. This came from a dream. A young man, he recently graduated from college, and he got his first job. And he dreamed that he parked his car in the company garage, and the garage collapsed. It reflected his waking life because the company that he worked for, that he had just started this job with, this job that was going to take him places in his life, about a month after he started there, the company collapsed. And of course, he no longer had a job. So it's a physical representation of a personal situation. So if you're on a narrow road, you're driving on a narrow road, picture it in your mind. Okay? You're driving along, the road is really narrow, you can't really go left, you can't really go right. What could that mean? It should be pretty obvious that you have limited choices. And this comes from a dream that I helped to interpret. A lady called in on a live radio program that I was the guest on, and she said, I keep having this recurring dream. I'm driving down the road. It's very, very narrow. and I can't really go left or right. I'm bouncing off of objects on the side of the road. I'm coming up on the sidewalk and all this. I want to know what it means. I started talking with her about it and asking her about her life, and it turned out that she was a Western woman living in Egypt, and her husband worked for the oil service industry, and she was over there with him and found that the culture there was very restrictive on women, that they had restrictions on where they could go, what they could do, what they could wear, what they could say, the opinions they could express. So the narrow road is a heck of a summary of her situation. And then finally, wheels spin. Well, if you're spinning your wheels, your efforts are getting you nowhere. This is a metaphor brought to life. If somebody says, God, I just feel like I'm spinning my wheels, it means they're putting forth this energy and effort and it's not getting them anywhere. Let's do another exercise involving plane symbolism. Match the scenario on the left with the meaning on the right. So start off with what it can mean to be late for a flight. If you're late for a flight, it means you're behind in some kind of way. But, dreams are very clever about the way that they connect ideas together. And late in a dream can mean late in some way in your life. You feel behind. You are the 30-year-old college graduate who didn't begin their career until that age, and you feel like you're behind your peers, or you feel like you're behind in, say, starting a family or having children. You had this idea that you would already be started, and you reach that age or past it, and you go, wow, I'm behind here. This was something I wanted to do, and I haven't done it yet. Look at a plane takes off without you. What could that mean? Look at the meanings on the right here, the possibilities at least. Well, usually a plane flight is taking you to something that's important. So if you miss the flight, if the plane takes off without you, it can mean that you are missing something important. What about a plane crash? Remember, these are just possibilities, and there are others. But if you look at the list on the right, a plane is going to take you somewhere in your life. That translates the idea of the goals and aspirations and destinations that you set for yourself. And if the plane crashes, well, your hope is dashed. You're not going to get to that place, at least not yet. So if a plane splits in half, what does that mean? Or what could it mean? Well, you're divided. You're of two minds about something. You have a divided opinion. I know a very poignant example from somebody who had a dream that his father got on a plane. There were other family members there to wish him, a good voyage. He says, I love you. I'll be back soon. And his father gets on the plane takes off, and soon after it crashes, it divides in half and crashes in this fiery explosion. And as I was going through the decoding process with him, I found out that his father had died, and he was of two minds about whether or not to really believe that his father was alive in the afterlife. He wanted to believe that, and people had told him that, but there was another side of him that said, that's all a bunch of bullcrap. My father's dead, and that's it. It's the end. So he had a divided opinion about the subject, a very important one to him. Moving on, if you're unsure of what flight to take, what can it mean? Well, a flight is taking you to some destination in your life, and if you don't know what flight to take, it means you don't know how to get to that destination, so you need guidance. And finally, turbulence. A physical representation of a personal situation. So it can mean that you are having personal or relationship trouble. The word turbulence is often used in reference to some kind of trouble in your life. And that can be summarized in the idea or the image of flying in a plane, and the plane is experiencing turbulence. So really you see that oftentimes the symbolism is right there in your face. The meaning of it is right there in your face. You just need to think creatively about it and think simply about it. It's often right there. You don't have to go into real complex detail with it. I want to look at a theme, a dream theme, and get into some specific examples of dreams that I've helped with where that theme is used. And we're going to begin with the theme of shutting or locking out. So in the first example, the dreamer shuts her bedroom window to keep out creatures that are bugging her. They're floating in the air up to her second floor bedroom window, and they're bugging her, so she shuts the window. And we began with the idea of, well, what's bugging you and what are you trying to keep out of your life? After some discussion, she told me that she had broken up with her boyfriend some weeks prior and that the thoughts had been bugging her. And when she was alone at night in her bedroom after the day was done and she was alone with her thoughts, that the sadness and the feelings and stuff about breaking up with her boyfriend started popping up. And they were bugging her. So shutting the window means that she wants to shut out those thoughts. So we look at the next example. A young man dreams that his girlfriend locks him out of his bedroom, and she says it's not safe. He's 16 years old. He's been in a relationship with his girlfriend for about 6 weeks. Things are going really well, except there's one thing that's missing. She's not ready to do it, and he sure is. And she's telling him that they can't have sex because it's not safe. It wasn't really defined the way what is meant by safe, but it could mean she's afraid of getting pregnant, she's afraid of getting disease, she's afraid of her parents finding out. For some reason, it's not safe. And locking him out of his bedroom, the bedroom being a place where people have sex, it's saying that she is closing off that possibility. And now let's look at the third example. A woman dreams about locking her front door to keep a stranger out. If you're locking something, you get the idea, you're shutting it out of your life. Well, what does the stranger represent? Well, it turned out that her estranged father had contacted her recently and wanted to get back in her life. And a few times previously for this 30-something mother, her father, who had left the family when she was very young, had tried to come back into her life, and things just never worked out very well. He always pulled his disappearing act again, and she was conflicted because that's her father. And if she has an opportunity to have a relationship with him, then, there's a part of her that says that she needs to take it. But in the dream here and her action of locking out the stranger, it really tells her what she really feels about the situation. She really doesn't want him back in her life. She's not going to go for it this time. So I want to look at another theme. It's the theme of being lost. It's pretty common for dreams, and it can manifest in a wide variety of ways. I'm going to show you a few right here. This guy dreamed that he moved to a new country and ended up at the wrong apartment. And, well, one thing to know about him is he really had moved to a new country recently. He'd moved from America to Europe. And he was pursuing job opportunities in Europe, and they didn't materialize. So he didn't end up at the place where he was expecting to be. And in the dream, it's symbolized as the wrong apartment. Also consider that an apartment can mean that it's a temporary place in your life, because for many people, apartments are temporary dwellings. So in a sense, he was in a temporary place because he was between jobs. Now, another dream, a man has the recurring theme of getting lost while going to work. It manifested in different ways, such as driving down the highway and missing the off-ramp, being at work, going out to lunch, and not being able to find his way back to the building. And there were a few other ways that it manifested. And what I saw was feeling lost in a personal sense. And I asked him what was going on in his life, and he said, well, I recently retired. said, well, have you figured out what to do with yourself? And he said, no, I haven't. I feel lost. I am lost in a personal sense. So being lost in this dream is a physical representation of a personal situation. So let's look at the last example. Lost your dog. The person that had this dream made the point that she didn't have a dog. And so this is a big discrepancy with reality. And we know that if she dreams about losing a dog, it means there's something else that she's losing that's symbolized by the dog. And we talked about it and we figured out that the dog represented a friend, their man's best friend, right? So the dog represented a friend, and that she had been out of touch with that friend and was afraid of losing the relationship because of the lack of contact. So by implication, the resolution is get in touch with that friend and renew the friendship. Okay, so I want to walk you through some examples of symbolism. These are some of my favorites from dreams that I've helped to interpret. The dream is there's a business meeting in the afterlife. It's a white building. Everything's very orderly. The dreamer is called back into this office area where there's a man behind a desk. There are assistants who are around. And the man tells the dreamer that, welcome to the afterlife. Your job is janitor. So we started looking at this and going, well, what could a janitor mean? And what could the dream mean by afterlife? And what we figured out was that it connects with his life because he had recently been told that his job at the company that he works for was going to end. The company was being sold, but the owner of the business said, I like you and I have these other businesses. I want you to come work for this business, but you're going to have to start at the bottom and work your way back up again. Being a janitor in the dream is a way of saying starting from the bottom, and afterlife is a way of saying his new work life. We'll look at another dream here. What does it mean to be trapped in a bird cage? She sees a text messages going back and forth between her love interest and the guy that her love interest is into. So this is a situation where there's a young woman who has a pretty heavy crush on another young woman, her friend, but the friend is not into it. Her friend is straight and she likes guys. So a birdcage, if you've seen the movie The Birdcage, you know that it's presented in that movie as meaning sexuality and being trapped within it. So this young gay woman is trapped in this situation because she will never get what she wants. Her friend is straight, she likes guys, and it will never happen between the two of them. And the next example, this came from a dream that had a lot of details to it, but I wanted to pull this out to show you a hole in the sun. This really seemed to be the central image of the dream, and it really stuck out to me. And I started talking with the dreamer about the dream and asked him, well, how does this reflect you in your life? And it turned out that his father had passed away, and he had a hole in his life. So sun is a wordplay on S-U-N. Sun is a wordplay on sun, S-O-N. He's missing his father in his life. The sun, S-U-N, can also be a symbol of a father figure. So this dream has two layers of meaning. It's the father missing from his life, and it's the hole in the sun left by the absence of his father. A karate tournament in a wheelchair. Now, just picture this for a second. Isn't that, that has to be symbolism. And I talked with the person about the dream. He was a young man. He really was taking karate classes, so that's an important thing to know when figuring out the dream. But what does it mean to be in a wheelchair? Well, people in wheelchairs are given special consideration, and put that together with karate. I asked him, are you asking for special considerations in your karate classes? And yeah, it rang a big bell with him because he didn't like the physical contact of karate, and he was always asking for exceptions. You know, the other students are doing it, but he didn't want to have to do it. So he was asking for these special considerations. And in a very satirical sort of way, the dream summarizes that in one image of a wheelchair at a karate tournament. And now we'll look at another example. A man gives birth to a baby, and the doctor is an old friend of his. So we started looking at the idea of giving birth. It can mean that there's something new about yourself that's emerging, or something that's new in your life. And I asked him about this, and he said, well, you know, it's funny is I recently made a decision. I want to be more successful, and I just became more hardworking and more disciplined about my life. And the old friend in the dream is he's someone I don't know very well, but one thing I do know about him is he's been very successful, and the way that he does it is with discipline and hard work. So I used him as an example, and so the dream, through giving birth to the doctor, to his friend's baby, the friend is the doctor, and it's actually, the baby is actually the friend's, and the friend is the doctor. So it's a way of saying that the dreamer is giving birth to these new qualities in himself. So a few more favorites here. Let's look at, really get into how to decode symbolism here. We talked about being pursued in the dream, and a friend of mine had a dream about being pursued by this black shadowy figure, and we traced it back to his financial worries. He's the breadwinner, and you know, he's got 2 kids and a mortgage, a wife, and he had some real fears about things kind of collapsing on him. And so the thing following him was just fear. Another dream, a guy gives his girlfriend a blowjob. There's a big discrepancy with reality that should stand out to you here. You know, his girlfriend doesn't have a penis, so what does it mean to give her a blowjob? Well, we dug into his life a little bit and found out that the night before the dream, his girlfriend had said, you're selfish with sex, you're selfish in general, and just overall, you're a bad human being. And she made him feel like crap about himself, and he said he ended up groveling for hours. Well, groveling is an oral activity, and so is a blowjob, so there's a connection to be made. And so basically, giving his girlfriend a blowjob was a way of saying that he was being submissive, and he was groveling before her. The co-workers catching up as a plane takes off. This was a dream where the guy's on a plane, the door's open, the plane's rolling down the runway, he's standing in the door, and he's telling them to catch up and get on the plane. Well, he had just created a startup business and hired some employees, and he was trying to get those employees up to speed so that they could be more assistance for him to be able to reach the destination that he wanted to reach, which was having a successful business. Serving eggs sunny side up to your family. This was a dream, just as I show it here. And there's really not a whole lot here to go by, right? But it really says a lot in one image, because the dreamer was someone who tended to hide behind a happy mask, a happy facade around her family. She would be all smiles and all that when they were around, but it wasn't how she really felt. And sunny side up is a way of saying show a happy face. So you connect those ideas together, and it described the situation in her life, and it's a heck of a metaphor. A dream about blowing up the old HR, human resources manager's house. This was a dream a guy had after he left a company under kind of, questionable terms. And he decided that he was going to burn bridges, and he really went off and realized later that he also blew his chances of ever using that company as a reference. So the dream summarizes the situation in the image of blowing up the HR manager's house. So another dream, a man is in bed snuggling with his ex-wife. They're actually going through a divorce, and he finds snakes in the bed. He was going through divorce, but he said that things were amicable. They were able to agree on, the division of possessions and all that stuff. And he and his wife were actually getting along pretty well. And it was shown in snuggling in bed together. But the snakes that shows another thing going on. It's treachery of her family members interfering by telling her that she needs to get tough and take him for all he's worth. It's a sort of a poisonous or treacherous situation that's symbolized by the snakes. A mom forces the dreamer to poison her beloved pet dog. Isn't that shocking? You know, you might look at that on the surface if you take it literally, and you could go all kinds of directions with them, none of them good. Well, it's symbolism, and we talked about it. I talked about it with the dreamer and asked her, is there something that your mom forces you to do or is trying to force you to do? And how does that relate to the idea of poisoning your dog? We put the ideas together and connected it with something going on in her life. Her mom, who is a manipulative narcissist, was trying to force her to, the dreamer, to marry her best friend. And so the best friend is symbolized as her pet dog, and poisoning the dog is an expression of her fear that marrying her best friend will be poison to the relationship. So, very clever way of summarizing the situation. Okay, that brings us to the end. I hope you've learned about your dreams and how to decode them. This should be a good introduction for you. Please share it with your friends. Find me online. I have a blog at dreams123.net. I've been maintaining that blog for years. There's a lot of content there. It can tell you a lot about your dreams. I have a bi-monthly newsletter that I put out. If you go to dreams123.net/newsletter, sign up for it, and you can get the latest and greatest information and offerings of my writing and my courses and stuff. I promise you there's nothing spammy or creepy about it. I'm a professional, and I want to be able to, I want to have your trust. So share your name and email address there. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/interpretdreams. I love engaging on Facebook with people, and I have a pretty popular page where you're welcome to talk about your dreams or ask questions or just drop by to see what the latest is. I'm on Twitter at Reddit Dreams and also at JMDeBoard. I use the Reddit Dreams account more, and it's mostly for sharing really neat, sometimes extraordinary dreams and discussions about dreams that I find at the Reddit Dreams forum. And that forum is found at dreams.reddit.com. Drop by. It's a community of more than 20,000 subscribers, and you can share your dreams, ask questions, give feedback on dreams, post links, read about articles and news related to dreams. So I will see you there, and until next time, take care and happy dreaming.